Calicut, August 8, 1766. I have been given a fine room with a view of the estate and have been left to my own company. Outside, the never-setting sun lingers longer than I am used to, as if a deep unrest smolders beneath the horizon. There is something primal about it, something old-rooted in the earth. This new land may yet prove to be more accepting of who I truly am. It speaks to my nature, this place. In the year 1498, Portuguese trader Vasco da Gama arrived in the city of Calicut, in the southern part of India, and was the first to establish trading relations with local rulers. Other European nations would attempt to establish a foothold in the nation, including the Dutch, the French, and the Danish. But in the end, the nation that would ultimately gain the surest footing was the British, who would form the East India Company in the 1600s as a commercial venture, which eventually led to British rule over the entire country. The EIC was able to employ divide-and-rule tactics to whittle away at any resistance they faced from local rulers like Tipu Sultan and Nawab Siraj-ud-Daulah, which often involved bribing their officers and ministers against them. The fact that a company ended up being as powerful as a nation in its own right is chillingly similar to how a lot of modern-day corporations are influential enough to have their invasive tendrils in our lives as well. The only reason they don't rule us is because they don't need to. Now, why did I spend the introductory part of this video going over real-world history? Well, for starters, most of my viewers are from the United States, so in all likelihood, they may not be aware of the history of colonial India, which I barely touched upon and would in fact encourage more people to read up on. Secondly, while the themes of this story are fairly easy to understand, the fact that it refers to a troubled time in Indian history might help put a few things in context for viewers. The plot of These Savage Shores is kicked off when a vampire named Alain Pierrefonds is caught and nearly killed during one of his feeding frenzies. This causes his fellow vampires to arrange for him to be sent to Calicut through the East India Company. While Alain believes he will thrive in this land, which appears more suited to his inner darkness, he learns very quickly that these savage shores are home to their own terrors, which are far greater than he believed. These Savage Shores uses the concept of vampire aristocrats, a Western trope popularized by stories like Bram Stoker's Dracula, to give a more visceral depiction of how the British plundered India of its resources. I mean, the vampires are in a position of power, turn the locals against one another, and assault the local women that caught their eye. It's not too hard to understand the subtext here. Even the title is a reference to how the British, and let's be honest, most European colonizers, referred to the indigenous people of the lands they plundered as savages who needed to be civilized, which justified their actions in their minds. And if a few eggs broke in the service of the omelette, well, that's just the price of progress. Ram V also plays with how the monsters are perceived by both nationalities. The vampires, as mentioned, are aristocrats that command a certain degree of social status, which leads to an interesting interaction when the hunter who nearly ended Pierrefonds travels to Calicut in hot pursuit, only to try to kill the devil in these parts. Unfortunately for him, he assumes that the young king is the one he has to kill, rationalizing that being the devil was the only way one so young could have ascended to the throne. His train of thought is understandable to a point when one considers that the vampires he fought were all wealthy and influential, possessing a degree of power over people not limited to their vampiric abilities. His misconceptions are shattered when the true terror reveals himself. However, the entire thing isn't just about English vampires versus Indian Rakshas as a metaphorical battle for the fate of a nation. Ram V also spent time on the politics of the region, with real-world figures who were active at the time, including Hyder Ali and his son Tipu, who were instrumental figures in the Anglo-Mysore Wars. He also doesn't paint anyone as completely in the right for their decision to throw in with or stand against the British. Instead, the people within the stories come off as being forced to adapt to whatever situation they are thrust into, be it through diplomacy or war. A mild spoiler, if this could be considered one, but at the end of the story, there isn't anyone left burdened by their scars, either physically or mentally or both. Everyone is changed at the end of the tale. Nothing remains the same, no matter how much people would wish things would go back to the way they were. It wouldn't be fair of me to not mention the art, as the washed colors are a great choice for the story and work well to immerse the reader in the world, whether it be the jungles and temples of the Malabar coast or the streets of London. There are multiple moments where the art is not accompanied by any dialogue, yet the emotions that are meant to be conveyed are so clear as if they were screaming directly at the reader, a mark of a good comic that relies on both its words and visuals to tell its story. And as I end the video, I heartily recommend these Savage Shores. The creative team is mostly of Indian origin and as such are well equipped to tell this story, and they do a fantastic job while at it. Speaking of the story choice itself, I will admit a story about the horrors of colonialism is a bit of an odd choice for the spooky season. However, it isn't uncommon for these type of tales to utilize real-world incidents. After all, sometimes learning that horrifying things happened in the real world in the past can be enough to give one pause. Anyway, thanks for watching. I usually don't do this as much because I know people get mad if I do, but I'll really request everyone who watched this video to like, share, subscribe, and comment on what you thought about these Savage Shores. Have you read it? Have you not read it? The channel's going through a rough period since September of this year, and I need all the help I can get. So, thanks if you made it this far, and I hope to see you in the next one. Greetings to you, Colonel Smith, from the house of Prince Vikram Mani of the Zamorin. It is unfortunate we did not have the chance to meet before you left for Mysore, and so it is regrettable that today, in my first correspondence to you, I should have to be the bearer of such terrible news.